Welcome, everyone. We're here with Denver Stevo. He's working on his picture, and our special guest, Mark Turi. And we're going to be talking
Hey,
Q&A and whatever you guys want to talk about, put it in the chat.
Hey, everybody.
hi everyone. Yeah, today we'll do a Q&A, as Clearwater Chad said, and I'm also
Yeah.
interested if anyone wants to ask anything in general, like a Q&A type stuff, or if there's something going on in the world of Scientology, news, current events. If you want my reaction or an opinion of something that's gone on lately, just let us know, and we'll go from there, because I do think, yeah, sometimes also from previous streams, also maybe previous streams that I've been on too, if you just want to ask, some kind of question or something related, it's cool. I'm always here, and I always enjoy doing it, and very glad to be here with Chad and Steve as well. So thank you guys for having me again.
Definitely. No, these are always a lot of fun.
Yeah, third time, which is really great, and I love being here. I love being with the community. You guys are, again, pretty new from what I've discovered, obviously, but yeah, it's really fun. And I may have said it before, but the phenomenon of never ends being very, oh, hi Juliana, being interested in Scientology is really awesome. I'm really, like, in one way, very pleasantly surprised in some way, because again, when you come out of Scientology, it's very weird. Like, you feel very much alone, and a lot of people who have never been in, you don't always get a lot of compassion from those people. So when people are completely never ins, but they're curious and they're compassionate and they're interested, it's just amazing. So I very much respect and thankful for everyone who is in this never ends community, and doing the work you do is really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Oh, speaking of the SPTV,
Hmm.
Stevo has a new merch store. Denver Stevo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. I do. So yeah, if everybody not if you're on my channel right now, you'll see the little, you should see the little drop bar, or the little, whatever they call it, the shelf
Marilyn.
that's got a few things. Hey, Marilyn. And if you're not on my channel, well, one, get to my channel and hit like. Uh, but two, you can go to, I'll get the address up here so you guys can go to the site. There's there's clothing, there's accessories, a whole bunch of stuff. Launched it last night. I was planning on launching it on Monday during the after show, but it just all came together so easily. It wasn't easy. It obviously took a bit of time. But it all came together right at kind of a great culmination point. So I just decided, let's open it up last night. And we've already got some fantastic sales on there. That's exciting. And my promotion here for the launch is the first 50 transactions will get 15% off of all merchandise. So whatever you go in there and purchase, 15% off. But you have to be one of the first 50 transactions on the site, and there've already been a couple. So
Wow.
that's my big promotion. Everything from a great OSA line to the Xenu Nation line. We've got some fun stuff, and I'm always open to more ideas. Sometimes we've already discovered things like Fourth Wall doesn't have dog products, and dog chew toys and things like that, which people want. But if it's something that I can get through Fourth Wall and something I can sell through Fourth Wall, I absolutely will. And I've got one that I haven't launched yet, but I'm going to launch it specifically, this product, on Monday night in conjunction with the after show and Sleeping with Stevo. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, swing on over. You'll see it. You'll see the shelf. And then I'll get the actual address to get you whatever to the full page. But if you click on one of the shirts or one of the things you see on the shelf, it'll actually take you to a spot where you can get to the entire site. Just you go browse all items. So anyway, that's my long-winded promotion for the merch store. It's exciting. I'm pumped for it. I think there's some cool stuff. Swing on over, check it out. Anyway, back to the story.
No, that is great, and I have to say it just happened, so I didn't get a chance to check out either, but I definitely will.
Yeah,
the mugs and the t-shirts are hot sellers. I'll just say that. So
wow.
Swing on over where exactly, Jeff? If you're on if you're at Denver Stevo right now, you should see what they call a shelf, which is down under Mark and under our pictures. You should see this little row of merchandise. Click on any one of those merchandise items, and it'll take you to that item at my merch store. But up at the top, you'll see something like view all items or browse all items or something to that effect. And then that'll take you into the full store. And yes, I will make sure that the address is up. I just have to, do a quick cut and paste here, and it'll be, we'll post it in a sec. So.
Excellent. Very good. And before we get going, Mark, I don't want to forget to mention the document that you were in. What was it again?
Yeah, so I did a podcast with Rachel Bernstein, who is a therapist. She's sort of I guess you could say like an ex-cult therapist, or also, involved in like family therapy and deals with sort of narcissistic personalities. And she's a friend. She's really, really great. So she has a podcast called Indoctrination, which is like an award-winning podcast. And I was on there, very recently. And I really like to plug that because we talked a lot about, how I got into Scientology, but just also some of the things that I've learned after, 15 years of leaving. You do get a lot of perspective. So certain things that I've learned about that, sort of psychologically speaking, and certain things that have helped me along the way. Also how my parents dealt with, what they were involved or not involved with when I was in Scientology, what they did or didn't do. And so I think for people that may be interested, who may have a family member, a friend, or even just having a general interest in this space, it's Indoctrination with Rachel Bernstein. And her podcast is basically everywhere. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, basically all over the place. She also has a website. So I would really, really, really love if, you go over there and listen to it. And also in general, if you give her, on iTunes or whatever rating service that you have, if you give her, 5 stars, a thumbs up, that would be great too. So I'm really, really, really thankful for her, just as I am for the whole community, being able to, express my story and also talk about the things that I've learned in from Scientology and out of Scientology. And I hope you enjoy if you do go over there and listen. And thank you again. I don't have YouTube. I don't really do social media too much. So when I do podcasts and so forth like that, it's my way of promoting. So again, very appreciative, and hope you enjoy. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
That's great. Yeah, we'll definitely look for that.
Yeah.
And before we get going, everyone, I just want to say that we're bringing back, by popular demand, I stopped doing the pre-show the day we did the Mike Render-a-thon because I needed some sleep. And I just never thought about it since. But people have been asking me about it. So we do have one scheduled for this Monday, 2 hours before, just like it used to be before the main show, be 5 o'clock Clearwater time. If any of the viewers want to be in it, preferably someone that's at least thinking about starting a channel or wants to do an arts and craft, but really anyone's welcome. Just email me, and you don't have to stay the whole time. You can say hi. You can stay 10 minutes. Just email me. It's always fun. So, like I said, we're gonna be doing that again starting this Monday. So we'll have Claire the Tailor on, Cindy
cool.
from Sinful Foods. Yep. Poet, of course, will be on, and Terry. So some of the regulars and some new people. So it should be fun.
Oh, that will be fun. Do we get more? Do we get more Jay Leno Smurfs now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been missing those too.
Yeah.
People are asking for the palm trees too. So it's been a while. So yeah, we're gonna get back to the basics here.
Yeah, no, the palm trees were that was the first thing.
Yep.
Yeah, you and Chaz making the palm trees. That was fantastic.
Thanks. I like those because it kind of goes with the Clearwater theme.
Absolutely. Hey, just to be just to be a jerk and to sidetrack things, not to be a jerk, I'm kidding. Maybe I missed this before, Chad. Do you have a new mic?
Yeah, I just got it from Best Buy.
Nice. I just noticed that there. Very
Thanks.
cool. Yay.
Yeah, we're stepping up the game over here, all the channels.
That's right. Very cool.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
As the wonderful number 5 in letter A says, don't forget to smash that like button. In fact, smash all those like buttons, folks. I think are we up on Marilyn's channel too? I think we are.
Yeah,
aren't we?
yeah. I told her to keep.
Yeah. So we're up. Chad's channel, Marilyn's channel, my channel here, Julie's secret channel that she doesn't tell anybody about. So smash those like buttons, swing on over, get them all. You know how it is. As the routine, as the algorithm is. Like buttons, interaction through the chat, throwing comments in after the chat is over in the actual, left-hand side, the comment section. I know if you're on your phone, it's under, but the comments section, not the chat section. And then what's the other one? I missed one. Oh, and watching until the very end. Those are all things that make the algorithm happy and draw attention to our channels and bring us up and bring attention up to those who may not be part of the this SPTV family that we have. So do it everybody. I can say that when my face is not on screen. Do it. But yeah, so I know we're looking for questions here. Please, if you got any, if you have any questions for Mark, who is a wealth of Scientology and religious and historical knowledge, please dump those in. There was a great one I saw and I lost it, and I apologize. So I'm trying to find it again, and this is probably one that I won't talk about it if I can't find it, because if I can't find it, then
this is the one I highlighted, Steve-O?
What, the one that's up right now, Tiff?
Yeah.
No, but that's a great one too. Hi, Tiff.
I didn't know if you've seen it.
No, Tiff 45. Always glad to have you here on a Saturday afternoon. Welcome. Tiff's a longtime viewer.
Yep.
No, we love Tiff. So no, great question to Mark. What are you fed for meals inside what are you fed for meals inside the organization other than the token beans and rice?
Yeah. Well, again, you have to understand when you're on staff in a Scientology organization, there's staff members of what are called Class 5 churches. That's what I was. Then there's the Sea organization, which they say is like a fraternal order, and you basically get room and board for the most part. So if we go with the Sea Org, I was never in the Sea Org, but of course we have a lot of mutual friends who were in the Sea Org, like Aaron Smith Levin, and many people like I know Mark and Claire Headley. And so they generally eat stuff like rice and beans. And rice and beans is kind of basically just saying next to nothing, stuff that's cheap. Okay, it's the cheapest probably food you can get is rice and beans. So that's what they cook. That's what the Sea Org cook for the staff of the Sea Org generally. And then sometimes they'll be rewarded with things like a dessert night or whatever. When I was on staff in Berlin, staff members don't get room and board. We get very little pay, and most people need a second job. And I was basically working a Sea Org schedule, which is like 90 plus hours a week, but not getting room or board. Okay. However, what we did in the org I was in, specifically in the Berlin org, was whatever money we got at the end of the week, divided it by 7, and that's exactly, we went to a supermarket or a restaurant or whatever, and just divided it into 7 and got whatever we could. At a certain period of time, though, however, in the Berlin org, I think a few months after I'd started, so I started in May of 2007, so probably by the summer, late summer, August, September of the same year, the Sea Org members were actually cooking meals, and we were to pay €2. And the meals that they cooked were really bad. It was mostly, again, like cheap meats, cheap pastas, and a lot of times it was undercooked. So I've told this story before, but when the org was providing the meals, one of the first meals they cooked was liver, cow's liver, beef liver. And I personally am not a fan of liver. I don't like the taste of it. It's something that kind of revolts me, and which is interesting because I love every food. It's just there's like 2 or 3 I don't like. And because we had a lot of Hungarian Sea Org members, they made schnitzel essentially out of liver. So, schnitzel is eggs and breadcrumbs, and you fry it in the pan, and very thin. And I guess it was undercooked because I actually ate a couple of servings and then threw up. Okay. And then proceeded to eat more because people were buying for their €2 and they were taking a couple tastes and they didn't like it. And so I ate like my own portion and a couple of staff members' portion, retreated to the restroom, and then came back and ate more. And it was like that. And then they would make pasta with cream sauces and any kind of just cheap meat, cheap dry food, vegetables, a lot of potatoes because those are cheap. Nothing very nutritious. I can't tell you that there was a lot of, one of the things I knew when I got back, see my doctor, and she told me that I had a problem with having a lack of calcium in my diet. So really nothing nutritious, just what is the cheapest thing I can get my hands on for the cheapest cost, and eating maybe once a day. I would eat maybe lunch. I think I did that for at least 6 months, if not more. And so again, if we're looking at a Sea Org, at least they get food. It's not great food, but when you're a staff member, you have to buy your food, and that's always a problem. In addition to that, just the sort of the final thing is that these Class 5 orgs, at least in Berlin, had a small cafeteria, I guess we would call it, or like a snack bar. And so in the snack bar, there would be milk and bread and peanut butter and something. And it was all on the honor system. They were supposed to pay that this big sort of chalkboard that lined out, okay, if you take a slice of bread, it's this many cents. And if you take that much butter, it's this many cents. And really, like, a starving staff on an honor system is just, what are they going to do? And I don't blame anybody for the fact that, people stole, right, granola bars and whatever, but it was out of necessity. And so we had lost thousands of euros. The org had literally lost thousands of euros within the first year, due to the fact that people on the honor system had abused it. But again, I wouldn't even say it was like that. It was it was people who were starving who would walk into their snack bar and take what they could. So it's difficult when there's nothing provided, no food provided, especially on staff. But even when you're in the Sea Org, it's not like, you're getting filet mignon and lobster every night. That doesn't happen.
Right.
Every once in a while, if something good happens, then you might get some takeout from someplace. But it's really very a hard life, and you really only eat, again, whatever you can get your hands on. It's very sad, I will say.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, it's always strange. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the What's the analogy that I'm trying to think of? It's that Jean Valjean story, right? That Les Mis story that I steal a loaf of bread because I'm starving, and I'm punished for it, or we're punished for it, and that's I mean, when you're put in that awkward and abusive situation, I mean, and then are kind of forced to figure out how to survive through it, and then are in some way punished for doing that.
Yeah, and people need to eat. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I learned when I was a small child, and I just actually got back from there. I was just in the past week in a city of Skopje in North Macedonia, and that was my second time there. The first time there was in the late 80s, and it was kind of going through some rough times as Yugoslavia itself was kind of collapsing, and there were times where food was scarce. Luckily, even at that time, we had some food scarcity issues. We still ate, we still found a way to eat. But in Berlin, that's when things like I just didn't eat for days and whatever. The one thing that I think is, I don't know if I want to say the word comforting because it's weird. It's a negative comforting situation, is that pretty much biologically speaking, when individuals and people as a whole, when we don't get food, um, I would say I know for a fact that like that's the reaction of our bodies physiologically is very similar. I mean, the lack of nutrients, the lack of protein and carbohydrates, um, the human brain, relies on that. Your muscles rely on that. Your organs rely on all that. So you start a deterioration process, and pretty much everybody, no matter who you are, it sort of reminds me of like genetics. Like we're all related, so racism is BS. It's like no matter who you are, if you just starve someone for a couple days, the symptoms are pretty much the same. It's like a great equalizer against race and class and whatever. Like it's like it undercuts all that because we all starve the same way. I guess that's comforting, maybe in an effed up way. I think it is, but your brain starts to deteriorate, and really all you think about is food and eating, and going to bed hungry is really bad, and the pain, like hunger pains, and it's just awful. So I learned that in Berlin. I didn't think I would learn that in Berlin, but I learned that in Berlin, that looking at the staff members and having and seeing them experience the same kind of thing. We were all going through the same symptoms, regardless of what language we spoke, regardless of who we were and where we came from or what we believed in. Like in the end, we all need these, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and food is one of them, obviously. And it's just, I don't know, comfort. I don't know if comforting is even the word, but it sort of spoke to me like, okay, well, we're all kind of, we're all animals and we need these nutrients, and there's a purpose for this somehow, through biology or whatever. And we all kind of go through the same thing, and it doesn't matter if they were on top, you're on the bottom, you're on left or right, it doesn't matter who you are. Starvation and hunger really emulates the same way throughout individuals. And so that was something, again, that I learned. And I didn't think I would learn that. I didn't think that that was going to be a lesson when I joined staff. But to be completely honest, I'm very thankful, because at least I have much better appreciation for, not only myself now being in a nice privileged place where I can eat every day, but also for people, who can't, who are in societies and countries and nations, not of their own choosing, not of their own fault, or et cetera, who might go through hunger and starvation. It definitely is very humbling and kind of shocking, but it is that way. So that's Scientology. That's what it is. There's the people on the top, and there's the people on the bottom, and I was on the bottom, and that's what happened to me. So it was one of the many reasons why I left, and very thankfully got my life back together and learned those lessons. But I would definitely say that food and food deprivation is also another aspect of controlling people. And Yeah, it's what's used in many of these cults and destructive groups because your brain breaks down and you really can't think for yourself at that point.
Yeah, food deprivation, sleep deprivation. I mean, kind of all of those things that we hear are prevalent in Scientology, and you're right, many of the other cults as well. But they're always there, and they're absolutely they. I just remember, and this is in no way. I'm in no way trying to compare this to a cult by any means, but back in college, you stay up late, and then all of a sudden you're just kind of in that jello mold state of mind, right? Because you're, whether you're staying up late to study, whether you're staying up late to party, whether you're staying up late to do all of those things, and just to make sure that you have a life beyond school, and then you have this jello mind, and are very susceptible to a lot of I don't know, weird stuff. And that's, in that respect, I think a lot of the stuff that you end up being susceptible for, that's very unstructured, very unplanned. But when you go into as I've learned here, when you get into a cult scenario, there are people that have structured what they want you to absorb and take in when you are in that malleable state of, I haven't slept, I haven't ate, and obviously that's where people are, where people can do very bad things for long periods of time, and end up in scenarios like like Scientology, right? Like those Sea Org members that we hear about. Like, I'm sure even just being a staff member, you're just kind of into it. I've heard Alex kind of say the same things. So yeah, it completely understandable and completely here's a question from KP. And for all of us, probably, do you think OSA is actively trying to stop SPTV content creators? I think my answer is I think OSA is actively trying to stop anything negative to the Scientology dialogue, to what Scientology wants to communicate. And that includes SPTV content creators. I think there's a lot of, and even from me being a very small channel, never in that, probably a lot of, I don't have the following of the Aarons or the Marks or the Mikes, some of the bigger channels out there. And I can, I think I see it out there for sure. Now, to what extent, I don't know. I have suspicions. I think there are things that look to be OSA related, but I don't know. I am a never in. I don't know OSA. So I can only make assumptions as to, well, that looks pretty well thought out, well planned, that looks like kind of like it should be, not like it should be. That looks like it's an attack, but I can never definitively say, oh, that's absolutely OSA. That's their playbook. I only know what I know about OSA from what I've learned from everybody else. Now, if you ask an Aaron, if you ask a Mike, if you ask an Amy Scobie, I'm sure their answer will be different. I'm sure their answer will be the same as far as, yes, actively trying to stop content creators, but I'm sure as far as their definitiveness as to, oh, that's OSA or that's not OSA, that's not really a following of their playbook, they're going to be more clear on what those things are. But as far as the general answer, do I think they are? Absolutely, I think they are, and I think they're present right now. They're probably in our chat right now watching us to, Hi, OSA. Hey, you smell like poo. How you doing? Good to see you. Love you. Buy some of my OSA Smells Like Poo merch at denverstevo-shop.fourthwall.com. You'll love it. Get some for Davey. He'll love it too. So, and thanks to John Sostowski, who pointed me in the direction of a very tiny, I think he's going to be about that tall, very tiny Keebler elf / David Miscavige. So I'm looking forward to that coming in the mail very soon. Anyway, that's my answer. Mark and Chad, what do you think about OSA actively trying to stop SPTV content creators?
I mean, the short answer to the question is yes. The long answer would be how they do it. So the OSA, again, is sort of, that's the international thing. I remember, again, being on staff. Every classified org has something called the DSA, which is the Director of Special Affairs. And whenever anything was printed that was negative in Berlin about Tom Cruise or Scientology, there was always someone who would be writing letters or emails to a publication, a magazine, a newspaper, a television show, and basically giving statements about how wonderful Scientology is. So yeah, again, how do they do it? Well, I remember way back in the day after I did my very, very, very first interview when I left the Church of Scientology, which was in like February of 2009 or January 2009. And I did this interview with Mark Bunker. And I had never really done anything on YouTube. I'd never been on YouTube. And so after Mark posted the interview, I had felt that I had some regrets about things that I was saying because, whatever. It's the first time I did an interview. And I remember going through the chat and thinking, like, there definitely are comments that were meant to, like, scare me or meant to give me anxiety. And it would be things like, I had a mask on. So it would be like, well, I know I would know who this person was without his mask. Why is this person like? There's a certain tone where they sort of they kind of want to scare you in a sense. So if you ever come across like a I don't know, if you ever come across a video through our SBTV community that has one of two things, either they're trying to take attention off of the subject. Okay, so if I don't know, if it's a video that Aaron does or we do or whatever about the child abuse in Scientology, it'll be like something so completely different, or it'll be boasting about Scientology. That's one way. And the second thing is like if it's kind of antagonistic, like if someone's trying to be anonymous, but there's posts about, oh yeah, I know this guy, I know who they are, this kind of thing. If it's anxiety inducing or if it's a deflection, usually that's OSA. And then of course, there are people in the Sea Org who work for the Office of Special Affairs. They are public relations officers, and it is their job to watch our content and to make notes, and in some cases make transcripts to send it up lines to David Miscavige, who probably doesn't sit and read and whatever everything, but they want to know what people are saying about Scientology in order to create a public relations thing, which again means to distract or to sort of make the critics kind of scared. So that way that we'll stop talking. And at this point, there's so much content on SBTV, I can't even imagine like they would be able to keep up with it. And so in the future, maybe they'll just give up, or maybe they'll be selective on which content creators they're going to focus on. But I don't know that, I don't know that for sure, but definitely they lurk, definitely they troll, definitely they distract. It's all what we learned on staff on, how to make Scientology's image look better, how to deal with critics. There's things called dead agenting. So yeah, they're definitely here. They're definitely on it, but I don't think they'll be very successful at all, Oh, hey, Marcus.
Hey, welcome.
Marcus, hey.
You hear me all right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. I know there's a lag between the stream and what was going on, so I was watching. So now I'm probably a couple, 10 to 30 seconds behind. So
it's okay.
No,
y'all keep talking. I'll jump in whenever.
Yeah, I know. Just again, Chad, if you have any thoughts, just because again, it's
I do.
The short answer is yes, the long answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
then
Mark.
we'll get Marcus's opinion.
Hey, Chad.
But hey, Marcus,
Steve.
great to see you. Great
Marcus.
to have you. No, I think Mark Headley said it best in general terms about their tactics. He's like, well, they're not doing nothing over there. You know, they're doing something. You know, they're at something. We just don't know what. You know,
Oh,
what they're
OSA.
doing.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yep.
what y'all were talking about.
And
yeah.
that's all I wanted to interject with. What do you think, Marcus?
Well, I know that there's, employee things. Hubbard liked to, talk about in the lectures a lot of different historical figures and what they, and their successful actions and whatnot. And this whole thing about clearing a planet is sort of like a mission and or war. And, in war, like you get things done however they need to get done. And then, prior to or precipitating war or maintaining peace after war, like there are things like intelligence things where you can you control, and it's not exclusive to Scientology. It is done in intelligence communities all over the place. If you have somebody that you can control their environment to a greater or lesser degree, especially if they've defected, like say a spy that's been burned or something, or someone who left and is now running their mouth. You don't have to directly engage with that person necessarily to get the effect that you want or to activate some sort of agent type property where it creates an effect around that person or around the people that are around that person. You can sort of similarly how you can induce states of panic, paranoia, stuff like that. You can do that from a distance with absolutely, well, almost no trace, because you're doing it with the person's real environment that can't be like, there's no direct link anywhere. And that's the perfect kind of intelligence to run. And so I think that OSA does that. That's what I think. I think that that's the point they're at. I think they used to use more direct intimidation tactics. I mean, I haven't read the Unbreakable Miss Lovely, but there's some really scary things that I have read excerpts out of, and like that's the more hard edge Men in Black approach. But I think more so, it's the utilization of old, very effective tactics detailed in the Sun Tzu Art of War and all kinds of stuff that's been changed over the years with all the different governments and stuff they use. The Russians, Americans, the Mossad. I mean, all these different intelligence organizations. You can become you can be an agent and not even know it. That's the trippy part to me.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, so.
Yeah.
Intelligence. I mean, it's intelligence is a fascinating subject to me because of the you can completely dismiss some crazy operation that had a definite intention to create an effect in a something as small as a family, all the way up to the size of an entire nation. And that's pretty crazy,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it intrigues me, and I'm 100% with you. The whole topic of intelligence is interesting. What has always kind of blown my mind about a group like Scientology is, if you think of the military and their intelligence organization, there's all this I mean, there's been years and years. This has developed over time. They're hundreds and hundreds of intelligence employees, whether it be the CIA or any of the other organizations that are out there, right? And there's kind of all of this. It's developed and it's grown and it's built over time. And I'm not saying that Scientology hasn't done the same thing, but you think of just somebody. If you just pick one person out of it, let's just pick Mike Rinder, just because of his history. Mike was a Scientologist from the beginning, and from the early years, and kind of kept growing throughout Scientology to become to become OSA, right? He was
the director.
He was the director of OSA.
Yeah.
So he would, not to give too much credit to Scientology. I'm not trying to say they're like the intelligence agencies of the world. Just wanted to clarify that. Go on.
No, but the I guess that's my point being is it not impresses me. Good God, I dare not say that. But it's intriguing to me how
Pretty
they
impressive.
They have a relatively, they have a pretty good intelligence organization for being like completely, cornbread, right? Just being this completely, we've just been Scientologists. We haven't learned specifically. We haven't gone through all of the military, whatever intelligence training courses and all of that. We just had, it all kind of started
stuff.
Yeah.
I game with some guys that, are retired military, and I was shocked. I don't know why, but, over years of playing with this community, I was shocked to find we had so much in common when it came to strategy and stuff in video games. And it came from their S2 training or their S3 training, which is S2 is intelligence.
S2 is intel. Yeah.
And S3 is operations. So the parallels, because I play with these guys for years, and I was speaking about Scientology on my channel back then, and they were like, "Man, you really ought to not do that. That's probably a bad idea." Because I've heard Scientology's crazy and they go after you and stuff. And I was like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." And but yeah, like there's a whole lot of parallels in S2 and S3. I wouldn't say, well, I just don't know. And that's the thing about intelligence. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You won't ever really know if it's done properly. You won't know. You just can't.
Yep.
That's the whole point of it. So, and there are plenty of call them operators or call them divisions or whatever that effectively carry out intelligence programs all of the time. So when it comes to Scientology and OSA, I just think that that they play that game, and to me, this might sound pretty far left of whatever, like conspiratorial maybe, but to me, as a intelligence agency of say a country, you don't count anything out as an asset, a potential asset. Nothing. You don't count anything out. So perhaps here's the far left part. It's like perhaps there are active operations going on within Scientology, maybe. We can't research people the way they used to after the war. How else are you going to test the limits of humans and their ability or their willingness to be enslaved? The authority experiments that they did, Stanford experiments and the Milgram experiments, they were outlawed in the 50s. Well, Scientology became a thing, so, but I don't think it's just Scientology. It's probably, observation and stuff from all sorts of groups to see how, okay, well, this group has this set of values. How can we apply this over here in this other part of the world? How can we utilize the intelligence assets to get the result that we need here or there or everywhere? Tinfoil hat.
Interesting.
Right. Conspiracy. Right. Exactly.
That's a recipe for paranoia right there. Yeah, Julie. It really is. Even the former military guys, they're my buddy. He used to do, he was a Chinook crew chief and did load ops. They call them railhead ops, where they would move tanks and APCs and stuff in and out of Taliban occupied territory. And, he swears the government and his units and stuff have people watching him, because of the sensitive nature. If he was when you operate in the actual war zone, sadly, a lot of people don't, many people don't come back, but you also are privy to you might see something you're not supposed to see. And he saw a lot of people that go to war see things they're not supposed to see. Duh, right? You don't want to see a baby's head blown off. But there's other things too that are, sensitive, like lithium being transported in the middle of the Afghan war from China through some weird corridor that was built. Like, this is something that my friend told me. He's like, man, there was lithium coming like crazy through this village, and I was being told that we were fighting this war and trying to stop the opium trade or something, some BS line. So he contends that a lot of that was for lithium, because to reduce the costs of making devices here, or providing the lithium for China to make the devices instead of paying the cost outright, because they have their own lithium that they'll sell. Is that true or not? I don't know, but dude says he saw a bunch of lithium. So
it's all for batteries.
Paranoia, yeah. Right. He has paranoia because he knows that, and he's not supposed to know that, I guess.
And that's why I'm not an undercover operative. That's the only reason, folks. Hey, Julia did mention Unbreakable Miss Lovely is a fantastic book. Scary things they've done to
I've read about a lot of them before the book came out,
Right.
And that was part of, and publishing that stuff would be in something in OSA's handbook, like, publishing the stories of her complaints and her police reports, because then that would discourage anyone else from speaking out to think that they would do that to just anybody. But Paulette Cooper was not just anybody,
right?
But they would still have an interest in publishing that,
Yeah, they said that Paulette Cooper had VD or something like this to sort of delegitimize her claims, and they sent someone who was supposed to be a roommate, who she fell in love with, who was an operative. So yeah, it was a lot of trying to discredit her, but in the end, awful situation for her. And the book is really, really great. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's on my bookshelf. It's one of the it's one of the soon to come, soon to read. So, but yeah, it's same thing as Mark has, right? I've heard a lot of the stories. I've seen a lot of the post interviews, and oh my god, just I mean, if it was as simple as we're gonna steal a fingerprint and on some letterhead and write a letter in your name, that would have been bad enough. But all the other stuff, it's just it's oh god. And you're right. I mean, to think about it, they're still doing the same tactics, but they're doing the same tactics now, or assumedly. I have no reason to believe they wouldn't be. But doing the same tactics now, they have to do the same tactics in a much more electronic world. So how do you do that? How do you follow?
Yeah, everyone's got a phone. Everyone's got a video camera device. So it started with really becoming glaringly apparent whenever Marty left, and Marty was just like fucking cell phone everywhere. And to document it, because these the squirrel busters were they were at his house every day. They were trespassing. They were getting in his face with their finger in his face and harassing his wife. And it turned into what it did. The result is what it is.
Yep.
You feel about it however you feel about it, but the truth is that it was so interruptive and so just he couldn't have a family. They were that up his ass, pardon my français, that, you know, I can't judge. I didn't experience it. I don't know. You know, they had a child. You know, the whole court case and everything was very sealed, a lot of it, and but that's the links that they used to go to, and I don't see that as much anymore. I was followed when I started talking about writing a book, and and there was two people who would drive down the road in shifts. And they would do it every other week, so every month, the first week of the month and the third week of the month, or the second week of the month and the fourth week of the month, they would have a schedule where they'd come down the dead end road and go around. It's a dead end road, and it had a little loop at the end, and they just drive by. But when I was at the studio, they had an imaging vehicle that was customized at a place called Poison Spider, which is in Hemet. And so had the plate run, couldn't get a fix on who owned it. It was a blacked out Jeep with suction cups on the side, each side, and this model Jeep has very big windows. Most Jeeps have big windows, so they had the suction cups on the window and an imaging camera, you know, so to take pictures. And then on the back there was also an inset, like fancy looking black glass camera. It had a little light on it. It was like part of the backup camera, but it was way bigger. It was more than just a backup camera. And that particular fleet vehicle has been seen in my hometown since 2018 and all the way up to Hurricane Laura.
Yeah.
So on and off, but you know, that's about the extent that I can't even prove that that's them, right? So again, back to the intelligence, you just don't know. You can't know. That's part of the effect they want to create in breeding more paranoia, so that, you know, you act irrationally or seem irrational or seem crazy.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember a chick named Helena Ulentz who published some videos years ago, about 5 years ago?
No.
No.
It's an interesting case. I have the unlisted links to her videos, and she claimed to be one of the girls that was being interviewed to be Tom Cruise's wife. And now all of her videos are called My Nanobot Story, but it used to be called My Scientology Story. And I'm not saying what she experienced isn't real, but I don't know if it is or not. And again, that's the part of the intelligence. You don't know. But what she was describing in her videos was she lived in New York in an apartment complex, and within a few weeks after she decided this is weird, I don't like this, she was being interviewed multiple times, and and she didn't really know much about Scientology. They were sort of slowly showing her in her story. She's saying they're slowly introducing her to the concepts of Scientology. Cynthia's out there weed eating. The weed eater is so short that like I have to bend like Hunchback of Notre Dame. So what she was explaining was, what she was saying was happening to her was there were noises that were being emitted from both sides of her apartment, and her neighbors had moved out within that same period of time when she left, and then other people moved in, and she never saw them. And she said there were sound emitters in these rooms, and she was making these videos, and she really kind of went. She seemed like she was experiencing some serious mental disturbances. But what I'm saying is that it is possible and it can happen. This happened. You watch it in a movie. The Men Who Stare at Goats. They would play Barney music and Britney Spears to these prisoners to drive them absolutely nuts. So sound can it's kind of like sensory deprivation when you're forcing it on someone like that. And frequencies also, being an audio engineer, like there's frequencies that will give you a headache sometimes. When I'm sitting here mixing for a long period of time, I'm hearing the same thing over and over. It's like at a certain point you just got to get up and walk away. But if you can't, if you're living at home and that's something that someone like put the effort, if this is all true, if she was one of Tom Cruise's potential mates, then they would have the budget and the interest to sort of keep her silent, the same way that they had, the money and the budget to contend with all of Tom's exes, and to put the amount of effort into keeping a lid on it.
Absolutely.
But that was Helena Ullins. She was very interesting to me, but she changed everything to. It almost looks like it got ossified. That's what it looks like. She's like, I made all this up. I was practicing acting, and I used to call it my Scientology story, but now I call it my nanobot story. But none of it's listed. I just so happen to have a document with all of the links that she had sent me in an email of these unlisted videos, and they're very trippy.
Interesting.
I've always wondered what the Tom Cruise girlfriend auditioning process looked like. I mean, is it a casting call and you just keep coming back several times, or interviewed several times and then you have your final casting with Tom and he makes the final decision there? I guess I don't know how that looks, but
Yeah,
but
I don't either, really. I mean, I can only assume that it would be something like a game, because they
Right.
often make everything a game on staff. And so like, okay, let's make a game out of it. And, let's figure out how to get Tom a good upstat, person that he has a good 2D flow with, and literally just be out what in the field, just looking at people and maybe even going to places where on sets or something, or through Tom's entourage. Who knows? Like you said, I don't know what that looks like, but I would imagine it would be at least sort of a game, made into a game.
Interesting.
wow, yeah.
Yeah, Juliana says, I've heard about how it's all Thetans playing games, and that's nothing new under the sun either, as Mark probably knows. The idea that life is a game, that's not new. A lot of cultures believe, fundamentally that that maybe they don't necessarily phrase it like that, but the living moment to moment, taking things as they come, and your decisions that you make, it's game like, I suppose.
Yeah.
And here I thought life was a highway and I was going to ride it all.
Oh,
the way.
God.
So,
Nice.
You know how many
Oh,
times
you don't
I
like
heard
that
that song
song?
growing up?
You don't like it? Oh, I love that song. I like the original though, Tom Cochran.
oh, absolutely, the original. Yeah. When they remade it for, they remade it for
Mark's like,
Cars,
fuck
and
that song.
it's
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, no,
I don't like the
original-
remake. It's
Yeah.
too overproduced.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. The original, 100% better.
Even though when it came out, Tom Cochran, I would watch it on MTV, and I was like, God, this guy's lame. He's just stomping on a rock, blowing into his harp, half-ass. But you know what? I'd prefer that than the remake they made.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Tatiana, and Tatiana, forgive me if this was not intended for the group or if this was an internal conversation in here. In Britain, there were deep cover operatives spying on environmentalists. In one case, they started a family with a subject and had kids.
Yeah,
Imagine that, Petra. Wow.
This is exactly what I was saying. There is nothing that's not an asset. Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the CIA, I think they infiltrated the Black Panthers as well. They infiltrated a lot of places, like any kind of stuff. There were all kinds. Actually, I just reminded myself. There's an incredibly underrated, really great movie called Imperium with Daniel Radcliffe and Tony Collette, and it's about Daniel Radcliffe who infiltrates a white supremacist group, a neo-Nazi white supremacist group, way under the radar. It's a few years old, but it is one of those things where he goes in to be undercover, and then
That's Harry Potter, right?
The guy who played Harry Potter, exactly, Daniel Radcliffe. So he goes in, and there's supposed to be this big event that's going to happen, and he tries to take them down. But that happens all the time too. I mean, they infiltrate anything that's on like the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate groups. There's probably been some kind of infiltration with militias, with terrorist organizations. I mean, those are big ones too. FBI will send in, people of Muslim background who speak Arabic into mosques to see if there's any, thing going on there. But yeah, they definitely have done a lot of them, and they're very interesting books that have been made on that and so forth. During the Cold War, there was a lot of infiltration in communist groups and whatnot, and just fascinating. I find it fascinating being from Scientology, just how someone who's from an outside goes into one of these groups, infiltrates them, kind of gets all this knowledge, and then how they have their two personalities, because they have the personality of being in the group, and then they have to go home at the end of the day, and some of them would go home to a regular normal family, and then during the day they'd be in this particular group, and to divorce themselves with that is I find it quite interesting.
It's a lot of mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And there have been people, journalists that have infiltrated Scientology, like someone mentioned before. So someone that I met a long time ago was a journalist named Mark Ebner. And Mark Ebner wrote a book about, or actually wrote for Spy Magazine. He wrote a large article. He had infiltrated Scientology as a journalist. And he would say that after he would do an entire day of Scientology, he would drive to the California desert and blast gangster rap music just to decompress all the stuff that he was learning, and then go back the next day. And so Janet Reitman is another one. I mean, we can go on and on, but I think that, that fascinates me, the duality of these two personalities that you have to kind of make up. So.
Wow. Yeah. Couldn't contemplate having to do that every day.
No, I'd say it's probably a once in a lifetime. You only want to do it once.
Yeah.
Because it's like you look in a mirror, you just take a hammer and shatter it, and then pick up all the pieces, and now it's a mirror puzzle you put back together.
Your cartels and there's all that stuff. Yeah, I love all those movies about that. Yeah. Just getting infiltrated.
So sick stuff, man. Like that we don't even know we're involved with as paying tax-paying citizens. It's like what we're funding, and as they say, need to know, right? It's on a need to know basis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Selena asks, is this chat the cool one out of the three? Absolutely it is. I didn't know there were two other ones going on right now. So
I didn't either. I had no idea.
That's how cool we are, is we're above them. So sorry if you're anybody that I respect.
We are the homo novus of the chats. It's a little inside Scientology for you. Homo novus, the new man.
Nice.
The Ubermensch.
Yeah,
it's really that.
Word, for an OT.
Yeah, it's Nazi shit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is great.
Julie said that she likes those things in fiction, like in movies, probably, like I do. And like you said, Mark, you like watching stuff like the Daniel Radcliffe thing,
Mhm.
but don't like to
Great
think. She
movie.
hates to think about it in real life, even though she knows it exists. And that's the thing. It's like
course.
it does exist.
Right.
It does exist,
Yeah.
plural,
Yeah. It
all over.
exists.
It's
Yeah,
fucked.
even when it's a movie based on real events, it's a movie. There's
Yeah.
that separation.
Yeah.
There's I'm looking at Daniel Radcliffe. Oh, I'm looking at somebody, an actor that I know. And then you can more easily remove that from the fact that no,
Those people
this
aren't real. It's
Yeah.
the people that died during the movie, the people that were murdered, the people that were extorted and blackmailed and all that. They're not real.
It's a
So it's a
movie.
hell of a lot easier to digest than thinking, holy shit, that happened. Like there's a person in my hometown in this city and
Right.
connected to that person that actually that's why they died. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, fucking, it's a mind fuck. NSA, OSA, intelligence is what it really comes down to, and probably the scariest thing man ever encountered in the forest was another intelligent human being. That's the most dangerous thing you can come across.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Jeff brought up the internet and camera phone have become a big thorn in COS's side. They can't get away with things much anymore with the he said, she said, it's all a lie. True, but they find ways, and and that's the trick, right? Is okay, now this thing is here. They have to, and intelligence in general has to develop and progress to meet the new technology, to be able to find a way to get past the he said, she said, or whatever, the hey, look, it's recorded on camera now. And I think there's without getting political, we see in the world there are people who will just deny science is a lie, the earth is flat, blah blah blah, these things, right? And when you have some of that training like Scientology has, that whatever that I'm imagining Jeff Hawkins' wife yelling at Louis Theroux, and she's so convinced that they're not allowed to be in that spot because of the road closed sign, even though he's got a permit.
Yeah.
And, that whole type of thing, right? She's so convinced. She's she's in the wrong. They had a permit from the county or whoever gave them the permit. They were in the right. She was in the wrong, but she was so, blah, blah, blah. You can do that online now. You can get online. You can have a channel. You can have a whatever. And if you just yell to the mountaintops, this is a lie, this is a lie, this is a lie, people are going to believe you. And people are going to follow that storyline and go, yeah, that's a lie. Okay. And whatever, right? And
It's called the truth effect.
Yeah.
Is that what to be aware of? Yeah, it's called the illusory truth effect. You repeat it enough times and the lie becomes true.
Oh, okay. So there it is. I mean, right? So they're finding ways, and there are absolutely ways to get.
And that's a long-standing known thing to psychologists, psychiatrists, and stuff, that they could do that. A lot of, because in the experiments that they did cancel, they're like, okay, well, we can't experiment on people at these college campuses and make them beat each other and spray each other with water hoses, but we can mentally fuck people, especially in the 50s and stuff. Like they could do all kinds of things that would be considered malpractice material, now. I mean, the Unabomber was subjected to quite a bit of that. I forget what university it was, but there was a professor there that was enrolled and had funding from the federal government to do specific types of research. And this was the late 50s, early 60s, or something like that. And this guy would challenge his opinion, his views so hard, and it was what it reminded me of was like high intensity interrogative like sessions, where you're trying to sort of like get someone to well, it's actually not that different than like some auditors when they or ethics officers when they're handling someone on their overts and withholds, where they get you to rewrite. No, that wasn't quite it. That wasn't the full. We need the full TPFE, which means time, place, form, and event. And until you're almost, for me, I was almost just guessing in the dark, like, what the fuck could you want me to write? But that's part of the process too. That's part of the process of being confused enough and inducing, delirium and confusion, along with the sleep deprivation, sensory deprivation, and food deprivation. And so you put someone in an interrogative situation like that. It's not unlike inhumane prison practices. Like it may not get to the extremes of something like what was that prison that got a lot of attention? Guantanamo Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not putting it on order of magnitude physically like that, but mentally, absolutely. So it's the government did programs like that through universities at one point in time, and then the APA was like, "Hey, this is not ethical. Stop doing this." But they kept doing it probably, and they were still doing it in probably black programs and stuff. But it's not healthy for the society because it produces people who do tremendously horrible things. But blowing up people is not very good for society. In the mail, open up a box and boom, or blow. He sent one to a university. It was a dud, thankfully.
Yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he got better and better at making his whatever you want to call him.
There's a documentary I think on Netflix that's pretty good. There was a woman who had recorded a lot of conversations with him. She was an environmentalist. Someone was talking about an environmentalist organization being infiltrated by an intelligence agency. And that makes sense to me because Timothy McVeigh was an environmentalist. He presented this environmentalist viewpoint, and he published stuff that was environmental in nature and saying, hey, we're reaching a point of no return here. We need to stop and take a break and look at it logically. And people, that message resonated with people. And one of his, I guess it would have been his like top person that he corresponded with, that he got along with, provided a lot of the evidence after they found the dude in the middle of the woods. And she was trepidatious to present the information because she saw Timothy McVeigh as a misguided, like he had his heart was in the right place, but he got fucked up somehow and she didn't know how. Well, in the documentary, you see that, he was part of these experiments. They're voluntary, right? They're voluntary. He volunteered to do it. But in signing that piece of paper, you're agreeing to go through with the process, just like in auditing, if you run into any trouble in the auditing session and the auditor says you got to stay, then you're supposed to stay. And the auditor is authorized to use control on you to put you back in the fucking chair.
Wow.
And you put your ass down there too. You do it voluntarily, quote unquote.
So I'm saying, yeah, and it's so ingenious. It's like Denver said. It's like it's hard to grok the idea that I may have just like did a double negative there, but it's hard to grok like any kind of admiration or cleverness in that kind of methodology. but it is ingenious because there is no direct links, and you can't prove shit. You know, like I could say I was fair gamed, you know, but was I? I can't prove that. I can't. And you know, maybe if I had at that time, like oh, I'll hire my own PIs to watch those PIs, and then I can find out this and that and the other thing, and then I can say, hey, these people are messing with me. But I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
And then as you up the stakes, you know, if you're depending on who you're up against, they likely have resources, and if they don't have enough resources to counter what you're doing, their clients may be able to get those resources. And it's usually through all what they call vias in Scientology, but it's just through connections. You know, one degree removal, you remove degrees as you go to have to the point to where you are not culpable at all.
Good point.
Wow.
Just it's really frustrating because there's literally nothing any of us can do about it.
Right. That is the frustrating. Yeah, absolutely.
There's just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Hey, exciting light bit of news. Juliana just got a text that the internet guy is on his way. All right.
Oh, hell yeah.
Great.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So she might be leaving the chat here soon.
Oh, my goodness. That's really great news. I can't imagine how excited she must be because she's been struggling with the shitty 5 Mbps. That's what it seems like sometimes. It's just like,
yeah.
I give up.
Oh, it'll be heaven to see her back on camera again. So
yeah,
hopefully that means we have her back for Monday, and that'll be great.
I hope that Xenu, I hope they're giving her fiber or at least a DSL line for Christ's sakes. You know, I mean,
I don't know what the standard is, and Oceanside, Brazil. It's probably
where's she? She's in Brazil. Okay,
yeah.
So yeah, the grid is probably still being pushed down there. But I think it's probably getting almost to the halfway point to where like North America and South America will have a pretty damn seamless fiber network.
That's great.
It is pretty awesome.
I know. I work for. I actually work for a fiber infrastructure company. And we're making headway through Mexico with our
okay
right now.
So there you go. So hitting it from multiple angles. You know, I know there's contractors in northern South America working already because I got a friend in Lake Charles who owns a construction company, and he lives in Costa Rica, and he was like. He's pretty wealthy. He earned it. I mean, oh God, rough life. But he built a little construction company, and it grew to a very large size. And he's a musician, killer musician, and he used to play in South America and work for CBS in the '70s and wrote jingles for the local programs that they ran because he's a merengue guy. He got totally into merengue and South American rhythms and music, and not just merengue, a lot of different styles. But pretty distinguished musician down there. He played 7 inaugurations for the president of Costa Rica. I think they have presidents there. I'm not sure, but I always go the long way around. I apologize for that. Chad's like getting up and walking away. He's like, yeah, Marcus will be there talking for another 5 minutes to get to his point. The point is that there's contractors in the northern part of South America running fiber.
Oh, I know there's some. Some underwater paths too. I think Sao Paulo and. What's the big one? Not the big one. Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
So I know that they're from New York and Virginia, Washington D.C., which are some big paths. There are some underwater fiber runs being made that route as well, just to for that diversity. So you'll have the continental, through the continent, and then you'll have the water runs on the other direction, in case something happens to one, you've still got connectivity the other way. And yeah, for the communities, they should be all, expecting to see the upgrade from standard DSL to what they call fiber to the node or fiber to the pedestal, which is,
or fiber
when
to
you,
the home.
yeah, well, which is, I mean, typically when you have that, you have that gig, it's like gig download and like maybe
half a gig.
If that. Sometimes a lot of the residential stuff, you'll see maybe 100 meg to, on the upload, and it's
with all this running. I'm curious. They usually do go to the major hub, like here in the United States, like the DFW, Dallas Fort Worth area, was like first to get it because they're like centrally located. You need it from New York to LA, and then the southern states, like cities like Houston.
Yep.
They get fiber first, and Baton Rouge. So just to connect the nodes and then expand out from there, like you said, get upgrades. I'm getting 400 down, and whatever bandwidth I'm using up for this, plus the PlayStation 4 and whatever devices are on the network.
So yeah, you've got you're hanging well.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, I'm in New Orleans, and there's nothing underground. You can't put stuff underground here, really, because we're already 14 feet below sea level.
Interesting.
So it's an engineering nightmare and marvel at the same time. Like, that's why Katrina was such a big deal. The pumps broke, levees couldn't get drained, and they couldn't pump enough water out the levee system, and they broke. And so now there's 12 giant pumps all around the city in this big bowl. And if you're approaching it, so interesting to think of it from like 100 years ago to 200, 300. This city has a lot of history. Coming upon New Orleans before there were skyscrapers, you wouldn't see it. You'd just see flat water and maybe a little indention you might think is a mirage. So you'd actually have to really know where the hell you're going to get to New Orleans. That's why it made a perfect slave hub, because slavery was, illegal in a lot of places, and people were trying to recover their families or whatever. So, like, send them to New Orleans. Good luck finding them. It's also why a lot of queer people would come here, because they want, it's like they have a queer community and couldn't get fucked with. What I'm trying to say.
That's some interesting history.
Yeah.
Trying to keep my mic down up whenever, because she's still.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at least you're getting out of yard work. That's cool.
We're out of this part of it. There, maybe there's more. Tatiana was part of that environmental anarchist crowd back in the 90s. Some of her companions were jailed, killed, injured.
Jeez,
many stories there. Yeah.
See, what was I just saying? Like, his message was not like a lot. And Tatiana, like, probably saw this and was like, this makes sense. We should just take a break and look at what because he had some good points. Now, one of them not being blowing people up, not a good way to do things. But we see some of the same red flags being raised now. It happens from time to time with technology. Hey, wait a minute. We get some innovators that have been like Max Tegmark or George Hotz that go on Lex and talk about their different views of AI and GPT and transformers, and Max Tegmark called for a 6-month hold on research for AI. I would encourage people to play with Bing and experiment with Bing. And I'm not going to say any more than that, but because there's nothing to prove there, or nothing, I'm not trying to say that anything is actually occurring, but I think that it's a pretty safe bet to say that the the military-industrial complex that we have here in the United States is on a conservative estimate, 20 years ahead of civilian tech, and that's to me a conservative estimate. Every 25 years, like these projects, like where I grew up, they tested the SR-71 Blackbird jet engine at Northrop Grumman in Lake Charles, Louisiana. The big, have you seen the SR-71? You guys familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
Massive, like super jet engines. Now, if you'd have seen this in the sky in 1975, what the hell would you have thought? I mean, the blue flame, it was blue flames, and it was so fine, and it wasn't loud, and it was just way up there, and you see this. But we heard, because of the industrial area of Lake Charles, everything is loud. There's all kinds. They have decompressions, which is whenever you have a pipe that needs to be flushed for contaminants, and they'll empty all of the material out of it, and then they'll release a valve, pressurize it, and release a valve to blow all of it out. It's called a decompression. But that stuff, it feels like an earthquake, and it'll measure on the Richter scale. So noises like that, when you get people used to them, then they'll ignore other noises that are unknown to them, like the giant SR-71 engine. The military industrial complex, at least 20 years ahead of us, I mean, in my opinion. So because some of my retired military friends talked about, I had one friend who was a SEAL, and he had what he described he's like, it's basically what you had. This was back in 2015, and phones, even since from then to now, have like they're way more advanced. So a 2015 phone he had in 1997 in Kosovo, but it was bigger. It was just much bigger, and so that was 2007. So about 20 years advanced technology that he had in Kosovo in 97. And if that's to be assumed, give or take, 10 years on either side, it makes sense for people in the public sphere who are working in public business and private businesses, who are inventing and innovating new technologies, to say, hey, let's stop and take a look at it, because if we have this, then it may spark some questions, important questions that may need to be asked of our representation. Like, if we have this, what do you have, and what are you using it for? It could spark those questions in congressional hearings and whatnot. And I think that's what Max Tegmark is. He's not American. I think he's Austrian, but he says, should definitely take advantage of your democracy here, and get a vote to put a stop to it, even though other countries aren't. China's not. Russia's not. Those little breaks that people request for technology. I was back to Timothy McVeigh rant, that person, Tatiana. The message of Timothy McVeigh and what he did were really different. I think it ties a lot together with what you think you're doing in, say, we're on SPTV Never Ends, but two of us here were in, right? So it sort of illustrates that you think that you're doing something for the right reason, and for a good cause, but you're supporting a terrorist, or you're supporting a maniac, or someone who's just mad.
Absolutely.
Greatest good for the greatest number.
Right.
Hmm.
However
Yeah,
you
it
want to frame it.
justifies. Yeah, you can basically just be convinced that anything you're doing is not for you; it's for the greater of the group, and
Right.
it's a horrible, horrible way to think.
Yeah, and you really do believe it, like you really
Yeah.
do believe it, and you're hurting people and you're causing problems and you're destroying families. I mean, those are the things that I feel I contend with. The Ventura mission was a very uh, close community of Scientologists, and they all tried to support each other in their endeavors, and it was all gamified, you know. Uh, Poe on the go, Clearwater Chad. From my time in, I can tell you without question, the Chinese and Russians are not on par with the U.S. tech. They like to mimic our tech, but only in looks.
Hmm.
I'll take your word for that for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know from China's sort of practices in general that they don't tend to. Yeah, they copy. Yeah, they copy a lot. Um, I'm not sure how innovative the Russians are with with the tech, but you know, I think maybe this is reaching, but like since World War II and the utter decimation that we unlocked with the atom bomb, and the trend, or it wasn't necessarily a trend, it was more like hey, let's get all of the scientists from Germany that were working on crazy shit, and all anybody who has this kind of knowledge, and let's get them in a place where uh, we can, you know, sort of try to not let's understand the technology, but let's keep the scientists away from the crazy powerful dictator type people, and sort of like, herd them into a country or countries where they're less susceptible and easy to extract so that they can't be exploited for their knowledge. I've flown in a MiG-29 and an Su-27, and it's amazing how they have items on their aircraft that look like U.S. tech but have no function. Yeah, that's laughable, isn't it? It's pretty funny.
Wow.
My friend who was the crew chief that I was talking about earlier in Afghanistan talked about some of the NATO equipment and how it was the same thing. They were like, the guys would go into some unit, an APC or a chopper or whatever, and they'd be like, "Why isn't this fucking working?" And they're like, "Oh, it's nothing. Like it's not even connected to anything. Like literally no function, like you said."
That's funny.
That is
I
funny.
would love to fly in a MiG-29. I'm not sure what class the Su-27 is, but my dream as a teenager, was to be in the Air Force and fly. Top Gun really inspired me. I don't know if that surprises anyone, but
Me too.
I mean, swear to God, man, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and
Yeah.
I had the scores on the test for the Air Force, but my grades weren't good enough, and they also, in that area where I was living, the recruiters were kind of like, they wanted a certain type of person from that area, and I just didn't fit the bill. I listened to Nirvana, I wore certain types of clothes, and I was a nonconformist, and they're like, "Nah, we want conformity, and more so than the other branches. Like the other branches were like, yeah, sure, we'll whip you into shape. The Air Force kind of like, you kind of need to be where we want you already." It was really devastating. Like I went full bore into guitar for 4 hours a day because I was dreaming of. I used to do the Chuck Yeager simulator, and flew F4 Phantoms and Mustangs and stuff like that, early simulations, and it was just so much fun. And I just can't. I always could almost feel the G's. I mean, because that technology was relatively new, 3D gaming in space, with full 3D space. And so, like, when I would pull back the stick, I'd be like, "Whoa, shit!" SU-27 is basically an all-weather, larger version of the MiG-29. Also uses canard winglets for amazing maneuverability. Wow, canard.
Good to know.
I bet that thing can move, but if it's a larger version, it probably needs the vector thrust, I would imagine. Harriers were another plane that I've found amazing.
Loved the Harrier.
Yeah,
Was never in it, but that was just
it's just so cool.
Yeah.
Like it takes off like a spaceship.
Right.
It just goes.
Go Brits.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me wonder what we're flying now, if it's manned or unmanned, like as our primary principal means of interception or offensive. I don't know what they would technically call it, but like, offensive surveillance, sort of spying. And we still have the SR-71. That thing can go so far, basically in the freaking exosphere.
Right.
Yeah, it still looks modern, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, so does the B-2. Like the SR-71 and the B-2 look 40 years ahead of their design time.
Yep.
Yep.
And the B-2 just looks like it looks like the Batwing from Batman, and it's just flat, but it can deliver some payloads and fly very high, and has stealth capabilities.
Yeah, it always blows my mind how far in advance they started building these things. The SR-71, back in 75, but they were probably, that development stage probably started back in the 60s, right? And even the F-14s, right? The original Top Gun plane, those things came out of the 70s, and and it's just like these things. I mean, they were sexy planes for the late 80s or the mid 80s, and the fact of the matter is, they're 15, 20 years older than that, just from and even probably longer from when pen was first put to paper. So it's just, and all of these planes, same kind of thing. So Marcus, to your point, absolutely, these the military being 20 so years,
on average,
in
something
advance.
like that.
Yeah, it's just,
I mean, I think that's a conservative thing. Maybe Poe could give some his perspective on it, whether he thinks that's accurate or not. I'd be curious, because the way that things are set up to be declassified, it's you have a hearing 25 years after, and then usually that one always is a no. It's similar to other government things, like when you apply for disability, it's always the first answer is no. So every 25 years, you have an opportunity to declassify whatever document it is, and generally it's no. But if it's an item of interest or whatever, and there's support for it in the Congress and Senate, whatever, and even if the public is like, we want to know, Freedom of Information Act requests and whatnot presented in Washington, can get something declassified within 25 years. But some of them you can't. Some of them are longer than that. But generally they get declassified about 50 years later, right around the time that everyone that really wanted to know about it is about to die. So that the new generation can just be like, oh yeah, we accept that.
Wow.
Hey, Marcus Freezy, new project asks or says, he needs to send you a link on the SR-71. Where can he send it?
I will tell you. If you go to my page at in theta, if you just search that, you'll get a better result than just looking up my name or anything on YouTube. You go to the about page and scroll down, and you'll see view contact information. And there's an address there that you can send me information if you'd like about the SR-71. I'm very interested to hear about it. I may be wrong even about the engine being developed there. They may have tested the whole craft there. They may have only built certain parts. You know, many times that's how it works, where they keep things gotta keep them separated. Intelligence, right? Plausible deniability. What do you know about this? I only know this one thing. Bullshit. You know it all. No, they keep us separated.
And Free Xenu Project. Thank you for the super chat.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff's got a question for Mark. And if you know it, do you know, Mark, is there still a mission in Pomona?
I think that's for Marcus. For Marcus.
Pomona? I mean, Pomona, California. That's in between, if I'm not mistaken, it's in between LA and Ventura, but I might be thinking of that other town. Tom Petty mentions it in Free Fallin'. It's a good girl.
Loves your mama.
Maybe he mentions Pomona in one of his songs. It may be that one, it may be another one. Are you, Jeff, are you referring to Ventura or Pomona? Because I was never aware of a mission in Pomona.
I mean, there's one in Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Melrose, probably Santa Barbara.
Yeah,
I'm
Santa
sure
Barbara.
in the San Diego area. Yeah, there's
Chris spent a lot of time in Santa Barbara.
And then also in Northern California, there's quite a few missions. But
yeah,
Pomona is like Inland Empire area.
Okay,
I guess. I think. Anyway,
so different Pomona than what I was thinking. There is Pomona in California, but I'm not sure. Yeah, clarification needed.
Yeah.
So the answer is maybe.
Right.
Maybe not.
Free Xenu's got a question. When either of you were in COS, did either of you see any specific computer tech being misused to spy on members or non-members? Did they hire hackers? Fuck. I have an answer to that question.
Not for me. I'll just say. I mean, the computer system is so old. What the hell is it called? Incom again, or whatever? Incom or whatever the system is, and it's like ones and zeros. It's like just because it's like what I remember when my grandfather gave us his 1986 Hewlett Packard back in the day. It was like the screen came up and you would press 1 through 9 were your options, and then it would take you to those different things, and it was so old. But yeah, I don't know what I don't recall.
At Ventura, there was a system like that in Treasury where it was very basic.
Yeah, that's right.
Green screen, like the green text letter, like the Matrix. And there were multiple functions that were built into it. And I did not explore it because I didn't have access to it, But when the Melrose mission opened, our executive director was an IT contractor. He built the whole network inside the mission. He built another network in Ventura at the Ventura mission. He did some networking at Pac Base in the main lobby, like the big blue building that you see that says Scientology with the glass windows. He did some terminals there for the registrar. I didn't okay, misuse. I used to work in IT, So like to me, misuse is like black hat stuff, and again, it can be hard to trace. You have black hat, you have gray hat, you have red hat. Red hat is like the good guys, administrators. Gray hat is sort of like, if I need to access something that is, in a way that isn't legal necessarily, they'll do it in order to say get evidence for a client that maybe has an employee that's embezzling something or something like that. That happened a few times in my career, but the computer terminals at Melrose for the testing, we had a thing set up for the Scientology.org website to where you could do the OCA directly. And those two computers were also our public terminals as staff. So I, looking back now, having the IT experience that I have now, am pretty sure that Chris Baumgartner was monitoring all kinds of things. And not only that, after I left in 2005 and I came home, there were some really suspicious things happening on the computer. Now that could be due to my stepfather just clicking on shit and getting malware installed.
Right.
But this was during a time where peer-to-peer file sharing was still, being done, whether it was offshore or still in the United States or in other countries. And I think at this time Casa was offshore, and the peer-to-peer apps would download and I'd delete them, and but they would be downloading shit. And I think Travis had a similar issue. Being that Chris Baumgartner was an IT guy with potentially some black hat experience, to answer your question, I didn't see anything per se, and there's nothing for me to really say that it for sure happened. But I suspect that not only Chris did it, but, and the last part of your question, did they hire hackers? I think it would be foolish to think they wouldn't. I don't know if they do, but I think it would be kind of silly to think they wouldn't employ hackers. They employ private investigators. Private investigators employ hackers. Private investigators use hacking themselves very poorly a lot of the times, but they do. So that question slapped me across the face, because it really reminded me of, like, I was like, where is this shit coming from? Is it from Ira clicking stupid shit, or is it because I was still in communication with Chris, I was still in communication with his wife Iris, and as a black hat, there are things that you can do just through simple communications through email, where you can find out where a DNS server is, and then it's a process of elimination and some tools that you can use to determine a person's physical address or MAC address, in which case you can infiltrate a system that is, doesn't have a whole lot of protection. And at that time, none of the networks or computers that I was on had very much protection from that sort of thing. Great question. And Julie's got a question.
Let's see. Oh, this one.
This is at me and Mark. So, Mark, did you experience the whole thing of building your Scientology homepage that installed some malware in your computer?
That was like mid 90s, and Tori Chrisman talks about this. So that was way before me. But I think what happened was, there was there was this computer program on CD-ROM, and this is I've also talked to Tori about this. It was very much in the same regard as like AOL. You would put the disk in your CD-ROM and you would download this thing, and then what the program was is you wrote this bio about being a Scientologist, about how positive it was, and you had your own homepage. But as you downloaded the actual program to build your web page, there was, of course, a spyware on there, I guess is what it's called, and it blocked anything out that was Scientology related. So it was like a nanny program. And so if you went on to Google or a search engine, I mean, at the time
Yeah, that
there was
makes
Alta
sense.
Vista, SGs, whatever, and you typed in Scientology, it would block all the negativity. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it may have been related to that company Earthlink, because Earthlink was founded by a Scientologist. And I
That's
think
right.
the gentleman that did the program may have, again, I don't want to, this is like I'm kind of fishing a little bit, but I think it was an Earthlink related thing. And this was like very, very early on. This had to have been anywhere from like 95 to like maybe 97, somewhere in there, like very mid 90s. I do remember, however, probably seeing some of those web pages when I was kind of first getting accustomed to whatever Scientology was on the internet in like the late 90s. I know that Tori had a page. I mean, this is why she had her thing. They put up a picture, they put up a bio and all this kind of stuff, and it was somehow along with Scientology.org. But no, as I said, I think it would have been at least anywhere from like 5 to 10 years before I joined. Although, again, I am aware of the consequences. But that was a very, very deceptive way of, hey, the good intention of like, hey, we really want to promote Scientology on the internet, so we're going to get individual members to write, positive things, and their positive a bio and positive. So like, it all sounds great. And then you realize you type Scientology into Google and it literally blocks all of the negativity that has to do with L. Ron Hubbard, David Miscavige, Scientology. The OT levels had just come out at the time on the internet. So they were blocked, and ARS, Religion.Scientology, was blocked. So yeah, good intentions with the deceptive means and ends.
Yeah.
I never set up a whatever that is, my Scientology homepage, but I did have the OSA, or not the OSA, the OEC volume discs that you could install. It was like a disc set, so you could have the documents on your computer. And I think that installed some shit, but I have no idea. Vincent Giggles, super chat. As a never in and someone who is naive to most of which you speak, this is a fascinating live. Thank you for educating us. And Chad, don't forget to
10 exit. Thank you
there you
very
go.
much.
There it is.
Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's very kind. It's nice of y'all to support us, and thank you.
It's interesting what they do. Wasn't it? So Mark, isn't that illegal? Yeah, spyware popular enough. It's one of these things where Scientology skirts, right? So technically, if you buy, like, let's say you bought, back in the day, I remember one of the very first CD-ROMs I got was like the World Book Encyclopedia. That was like a big deal because it was on CD-ROM and there was like 100 discs or something. It was crazy how many discs there were. But if that company had put spyware onto their things where, you weren't allowed to Google anything with Encyclopedia Britannica, or they blocked, whatever, right? That would be illegal. But the fact that like this church organization is doing it, they sort of skirt around laws, and they basically just they get away with it because they'll be like, yeah, well, we don't want our members to get any end theta, and it's all this kind of nonsense of like, again, the greater good. So, or the greatest good for the greatest number. So it's like, yeah, we gave our parishioners, which is a word they use, it's a total PR word, our parishioners this wonderful program to set up their pages, and yeah, inadvertently, whatever. So is it illegal even back then? I guess it's one of those consent things. Like, do you consent to that? Like, if somebody gives you the CD to install onto your computer,
Yeah, it's
and
an end user
you,
license agreement. That's all it is.
yeah, exactly. So they would have said, okay, sure, and then even if when people found out about it, I don't think most people really cared anyway. Like, why would they care? Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
want to read Scientology and Theta on the internet. Great.
that's
I'm
true.
glad that I didn't
Hmm.
agree to have spyware because it was better for me anyway.
Yeah.
Whatever. So legal, illegal, I don't know. Law is definitely not my thing. That's something I don't know about, but they skirt around it. Put it
I
that way.
think that with the EULA, whether
Yeah.
it's because what malware and spyware and any kind of ransomware, what it is it's applications. It's an
Yeah.
application taking control of other applications in a malicious way, right? But when you
Mm.
have a piece of software that you purchase, um,
Yep.
it's also an application, and you are consenting to the terms and usage of it. So
Mhm.
that's in legal terms, that would be legal because you are consenting when you
Yeah.
sign the check and you check the box to install the fucking program on your computer.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
your consent. So yeah,
Yep.
it's
That's
legal.
probably buried in fine print somewhere as well.
It's legal.
I can't imagine that. You're right. I can't imagine the CD that they gave to the Scientologists wouldn't have had something where you had to agree before you install. And if you read through that fine print, there probably would have been something about that. Maybe even if it's just a couple of words. But like you say, it's one of these consent things where you just go, okay, fine, whatever. And nobody
Yeah.
cares,
We give away our
Nobody
consent for
Scientologist
so
cares.
much stuff, out
Yeah,
even outside of Scientology. It's just like,
that's
oh
right.
yeah, click, yeah, cookies. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Who's reading all of that?
Mm.
When I got out of Scientology, I was very into clearing my words. So, anytime someone would put a piece of paper in front of me, I'd grab my dictionary, and they'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, I'm going to read and make sure that I understand this fully conceptually. And they're like, this is just like a bank statement, dude, or whatever, something stupid.
That's funny.
Yeah, release
Yeah.
forms, stuff like that. But, I would encourage anyone to absolutely read their release forms if you ever ask to sign release forms. They should be very
Yeah.
simple, unless and be mindful of what you are allowing someone to use. But yeah, most release forms are harmless, but you should still read them.
Yep.
I'll be honest, I don't read half the shit that comes up on the stuff I got to install. I didn't realize Pro Tools, which is an audio editing software, requires a multi-year commitment. Like when I wanted to cancel, I thought it was like another subscription service. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you don't continue to pay, you will not be able to have access to Pro Tools for the duration of the term of this agreement that you clicked off and signed on. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't even use Pro Tools that much. But it's one of those things that when I need it, because it's the industry standard, like I have to have it to get paid if I'm getting paid for a
Right.
project that requires it. So, EULAs, and in Scientology, there's so much paperwork that you sign that you don't even fucking
Mhm.
realize, or at least for me, I did so much paperwork that you just
Yeah, like the first thing that you sign. Basically, the first thing that you
now.
sign before you
No,
even
there's
go to
still
a
more.
course. Yeah. Well, the first thing that you do sign, the kind of release that you sign, even before you take your first course, basically is telling you that Scientology is
It's not going to
just,
work.
if it works for you, great, whatever. But like, this is not really a thing. Like, you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like, it's so
Absolutely.
duplicitous.
I
It's
know.
like, we
My
can't
first thing was
guarantee
the Purist,
anything. We
and
can't
it's the same
diagnose
document you're
anything.
talking about. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
it's
what
like
document it
whatever.
is, but it says, we're not making any guarantees
Yeah.
here This,
Yep.
but we think it's pretty cool, but we're not making any
Yeah.
guarantees. And
But you signed this.
it's a rights release. You're releasing your rights. That's why it's so hard to win any kind of case against Scientology, because that's the
That's right.
first fucking thing they have you do.
Mm-hmm.
To say, oh yeah, I agree to forfeit my rights to have any complaints about any of this on any level whatsoever. And that is a legal thing. And so when it goes into a court and the judge reads that and they're like, they have to follow the law. So it's very difficult to adjudicate in those circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think of how long the case with Marty and his wife and the church went on for 2 years or something. It was a nightmare. And also forget what district in Texas it was in. But they had petitioned to move it multiple times. Probably Scientology was like, we want it here in this court. We want it here in this court. And because of influence or whatever, or maybe not even influence, but just thinking that they could get control over it. Where's the best district for us to be able to exert control, power, force, leverage, whatever.
Well,
makes me sad when I think about it, because Mike and Marty used to be like, these guys left and became immediately attacked immediately, and they were friends.
Yeah.
And just like what is the best thing you could do if you're Scientology and you have two major defectors? What's the best thing you could do? If you're Sun Tzu, divide them.
Right.
Yeah.
Divide and conquer. Yeah.
And I don't know. Just a little reflection of an acknowledgement, I guess, to what their friendship was. Because they bonded. How could you go out of those situations that they did and not bond? On a very deep level.
Right.
That was huge.
Yeah, there was footage of them fishing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fishing videos. Yeah, those were.
I mean, talk about some healing moments, man. I mean, had to have been. To be like, look, here we are. This is it.
Yep.
We're out.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? And then to be looking on what seems like a impenetrable prison wall and still having friends and family there, but having escaped yourselves. And being the head of OSA, there's things that that Mike probably shouldn't talk about, highly illegal shit.
True. Yep.
And Marty too. So, as Mark was saying earlier before I got in, like, you get into this, it came from the rice and beans comment. And, it was a good question, but Mark brought to light the multiple aspects of what's happening, not just the food and the hunger pains, but also the sleep deprivation, and then in the environments that you're occupying, they're not by any means like normal aesthetics. They're hypnotic. And so then you enter into the sensory deprivation kind of territory, where it's not necessarily sensory deprivation, but it's alteration of, common aesthetics, I suppose. So, and then also the thing that Mark, you said about it was a calming or the circumstances were bad under which you felt this, but you felt this like great evening, like we're all the same. We're all just trying to eat. A very base human thing where, like, when you're facing, say, I don't know, extinction or something, and you're just like, hey, we're here together, and in that state, you're kind of like a slave, right? And what do slaves do? They do what they're told. They do what they're told, and any kind of inference from outside of someone trying to free a slave, well, if you are the slave, you can only speak in euphemisms to people. You just like if you were to go into a bank and there's an abusive bank manager, say, "Hey, and the boss is sitting right there. Hey, I heard your boss is a real asshole." You're like, "Oh no, he's fine. You know, he's a nice guy. Of course, he's sitting right there." Or if a police officer comes and says, "Is this man abusing you?" No, hell no. You're not going to say yes. The humanity thing, I definitely relate to what Mark said about the multiple and the it's more than one thing, and that those things combined create this sort of situation where you're sort of in the stealing of the food and stuff, like all that is overlooked. It's the cantinas at Pac Base and CC never made a profit ever. Like, in fact, sometimes I'd go to CC and because I was a staff member, they would give me food. They'd be like, "Well, I'll put it on your tab." Well, I don't have a tab, and they never kept a tab on it, but they knew I needed to eat. And so in some ways you see some of the most basic human acts of decency in that pressure cooker thing. It's quite something, but I wouldn't recommend it. I feel similarly to Mark in that, like, it's not admirable, but it's like one of those things that when you experience it, it's I don't know, it stays with you. I think it stayed with me. Yeah.
It's nice.
Do we have any
Yeah,
things?
let's see what else we have here. Yeah, let us know if you have any more questions, guys.
It's cool. If not, we've been going through for over 2 hours now, so it's been.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
it's true.
Time flies. It's like
it does.
Yeah, you should come back, Marcus. So this is great.
This is impromptu. I'm glad to be here. Me and Mark connected via email, and because I'd been ever since I saw him and Doug talk about I forget what the topic exactly was. He did a few, but when he was pointing out and using a language pointer, explaining the origins of culture, and that culture is cultivated from people, and cultures are not cults, so to speak. Things that people call cults has this immediate, like, ugh, cults. But everyone is in a cult. You're in a culture. Is it destructive? Is it destroying your family? Does it involve child abuse? Does it involve XYZ bad things? If so, that is a bad culture. You call it a cult. I don't care. Call it a cult, because that's the ones that need to have that sort of reaction for. But calling it a cult simply like it makes it easy to call other cultures cults that aren't destructive, and it still has that negative inference.
Right.
Yeah.
Comprend?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mais oui.
Mhm.
Man, I thought you were in Clearwater this whole time. Mark told me you're in
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah, Buffalo. That's
You're
funny.
in Buffalo.
That's funny.
I was waiting for fall and winter to come along again, and he would be
Oh,
telling
God.
us it was 75 and sunny as it was freezing and snowing right behind
Deviant.
us.
Yes,
I miss
cutting it
doing that. Yeah, I might do that again though.
Deviant's cutting it up. She's whoever. I don't know if it's a he or a she. Decency. That's a word that's definitely not in the Hubbard Dictionary. At
Yeah.
Theta, you using alt tech, squirreling on the side too, right? Yeah, you are. I know it. You know it. The machine knows it. Yeah, I'm alt tech, alter is, whatever. As is. It's funny because my stepdad actually opened a brewery called As Ising because I explained to him once what as ising was is an auditor term. Mark.
I know.
So, right, it's a concept. It's not necessarily easy to describe or understand or even make sense, but like to as is something. And he was like, well, you know what? I figured that, when people are drinking, they just as is and stuff. So it means to fully duplicate something to the point to where it no longer exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you can, and this is another trippy thing about this is alt tech, alter is, whatever, Scientology, technical terms. If you are able to fully confront and duplicate something, it will completely cease to exist. And he means on a physical level. Like on a physical level. Like it'll just cease to exist. It's one of these OT concepts he talks about in one of the lectures. It's as ising. If you're able to completely as is it, it's gone. He's like the reactive mind, you can as is your as ising your engrams, you're as ising the charge, you're as ising BTs later. And they no longer have effect or power or hold over you. But my stepdad's like, I'm gonna name my brewing company that, As Is Brewing. And it just so happens that my mother's initials and his initials are ASIS. Alice Sawyer, Iris Sawyer.
Wow.
Weird.
It is.
Call it what it is, a domestic terrorist organization. Yeah, a church.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to legitimate churches out there. I mean, it's just that they happen to, these organizations worldwide tend to find themselves in religious orders,
Yeah.
and commit acts and commit atrocities, in the name of God or whatever. So,
Free Xenu, this is the question. This is the question of questions, right?
Yeah.
You talked about Tim McVeigh earlier, and that reminds me so much of David Miscavige. Does he really think he's doing his craziness for a good reason? Who the hell knows? He might think that.
Probably.
He might just think, hey, this is a great way to bundle a bunch of money up. I've heard from I've heard from others that he is a true believer, and he has certainly been in for. Been in forever. So, I mean, it's a very good possibility. But at the same time, what's the old saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And he has had absolute power and, for quite some time. So has he gone from a true believer thinking he's doing the work of LRH to somebody who thinks he's doing his own work? I don't know, but That's the question. I mean, or that is certainly one of the questions: is what is his intent? Why is he doing things as he's doing? Does he believe that, beating the hell out of somebody and throwing them against walls and, putting them in a double wide trailer for years on end
Infested with ants.
What's that?
Yeah.
Infested with ants. So the hole, is like
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
carpet, and it's just like the food stains, and they keep it like that on purpose, so that you're living in filth.
Yeah.
Yeah, my idea is that people like Miscavige definitely believe in at least some parts of the tech, and they definitely believe that some of it works because they might have had some personal experience with it. Like the whole David Miscavige story starts when he's a kid to handle his asthma, which probably it didn't handle, but that's why his father took him to see an auditor and whatever. So maybe they were convinced that it worked at one point. So he probably does think that. And then I don't know what his auditing record is. Some people say he's been stalled on OT7 for like 3 decades. Some people saying that's not true, whatever.
Yeah, some people say it was
matter.
lower than that.
But-
OT4, I've heard.
Yeah, exactly. So
Anecdotal.
who knows? But it's all anecdotal. He definitely probably thinks that it works, but that the ends justify the means, just like they always do in Scientology. No matter what he does, he's got the tech on his side. He's got Hubbard on his side, so he doesn't need really any excuse. If he beats somebody up, it's for the greater good. If he steals people's money, it's for the greater good. If he, like all our staff, we were making pennies an hour. That doesn't matter that he's walking around in $2,000 tailored suits and
Drinking the
drives
high-dollar scotch.
$100,000. Yeah, scotch and motorcycles. Like it's all the ends justify the means. So to me, it doesn't even matter. Even if he wasn't a true believer, yeah, that would be interesting. But I think he is, and I think Hubbard eventually became one too. So who knows?
Totally. I think you pretty much said everything I would say about the comparison with Timothy McVeigh. The ends justify the means. He really believed that. And I mean, with nothing but anecdotes to go on, I would presume that's the case with DM.
Yeah.
He really believes.
Wow.
He may also really understand the tech and employ it in ways that Hubbard didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And take it on as his own, and that's like a whole other thing. But he might even believe it even more because he's the one in control of it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's also the golden age of tech 1 and 2 and the basics and the congresses, which are just money-making schemes. But he probably would say, well, even again, the ends justify the means. So yeah, okay, these things are happening, and maybe people were pissed off, and maybe people have to do their stuff again. But again, he really, I think, believes that he's got some line to Hubbard. I do think he may even think that he's communicating with Hubbard on some level.
Yes,
telekinetic,
telepathically, and
yeah. And so he thinks that what he's doing is what Hubbard wants.
Yeah, he might be having sessions in the morning. This is all anecdotal. We don't fucking know, but they're not. Int Theta Strange, very strange. You're the first on the internet to not think I'm a he. True story. Some in IRL as well, which is I'm slightly odder. Otter, utter, fodder. Food for F. Okay, I'll stop there. I got through that.
Yeah.
Without fumbling it.
It's definitely.
Juliana said it was 420, so I had to, partake. It's 220 here.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's always 420 somewhere. Well, not true, but once an hour.
It's always 5 o'clock somewhere. It's always 420 somewhere. Damn it.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
At least once an hour. I mean.
Yeah. Anytime it's whatever 20, then it's 420 somewhere.
420 somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm blowing your mind, Steve.
Always. Boom. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I mean, it's been a great.
Thanks for the invite.
2 hours 20 minutes. Marcus, thanks for joining us. Mark, thanks as always
Thank
as
you.
well.
Yeah, it was
Chad,
great. It was
Mark,
great. Yeah.
That's right.
Steve.
Yeah. If you're not busy next week,
Thank you.
think about coming back.
Yeah.
I'll be filming some stuff next weekend, but
Sweet.
this was, I hang around the studio, so like if there's something going on and I hop in the chat, Juliana just sent me a link so I can hop in
Excellent.
if
Excellent.
it's something that is of interest.
No, very cool.
Excellent.
Tales
yay.
of interest.
Indeed.
Futurama fans out there. All right.
Cool. Well, everybody, the panel, I'll ask you just hang on while we turn over, while we end the broadcast here.
Yeah.
And for everybody in chat, thank you, guys and gals and guys. And we will see you. I don't know what the next one is. I hear there's a something coming up after. So go do some culty crafts. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone.